Well, we can say all kinds of things. Oh, I don't have a
Sorry.
microphone.
Yeah.
About what women need. Affordable or even free childcare, good jobs, maybe men who can find the laundry bin, I don't know, whatever. But unless we deal with the problem of childhood and parental determinism in society, it doesn't matter what women need or want, it will never be enough to make them free. Because the problem is that women, in their role as mothers, are one of the last acceptable places for hatred in society, for blame, for scapegoating. You can't be a misogynist. You can't and shouldn't blame a woman for what she was wearing, but when she becomes a mother, suddenly she's fair game. So I suppose if I can say one thing that women need, it's in their role as mothers to stop shouldering the blame for society's problems. But this is a serious blind spot, I think, for a lot of young women today. Some polls have claimed that as many as 40% of Gen Z don't want children. Okay, it's a fairly young group of people, but their reasons are interesting. One article by a child-free by choice advocate states, "I believe the only reasons to have children in the first place are if you desperately want them, and you will be a phenomenal parent." Another, who got her tubes tied at 28, gave reasons like not wanting to know what tummy time is, or needing to, spelling is terrible for myself, or not needing to ferry kids endlessly to ballet. And writes that she wants to be able to eat junk food and drink beer and not worry that she's teaching her children horrific eating habits. Just a few examples, but in short, many women have accepted that motherhood should and must entail an endless list of expectations, and that they are the ones who determine their children's fate. So parenting is portrayed as both essential and impossible to get right. Who would want to deal with that? Add this to the rising chorus of experts who seem to have new instructions every week for how women are doing everything wrong. When I first had children, my brother-in-law said to me, Ashley, just know that whatever you do, it's wrong. So it's no wonder that women are burnt out, blamed, and trapped in roles they can't possibly fulfill, no matter how hard they work at either of them, work or being a parent, or just a parent, or just a mother. Parents have become the last acceptable scapegoat when society fails, and it's often mothers and their wily wombs that explicitly are not become the primary targets when we talk about where were the parents. A few months ago, I reviewed Jessica Calarco's book, Holding It Together, How Women Became America's Safety Net for Compact Magazine. And as I was reading it, I was thinking, oh my God, this is an awful situation. It's about American parents. But it's a very common situation. I've done research on this for MCC Brussels, where you have a situation where, in Eastern Europe, parents are working outside of the country, and they're gone for months at a time. Then you have family breakdown, and the EU is like, oh, this is great, people are making these choices and blah, blah, blah. But if you actually look at the qualitative, what that means, like no one's like, yay, my family fell apart, it's terrible. So she hits on a lot of these really important issues, like employers exploiting these loopholes to avoid paying benefits. And she tells these stories about women who are working 50 hours a week across multiple jobs. Because if you're working part-time, they don't need to pay you benefits, right? So women will work like 2 or 3 part-time jobs, and employers like this because no one wants to work these jobs. But also they know that women are trying to fit the jobs around childcare, so they'll take all kinds of terrible hours. So it's dire stuff. And then all of a sudden, there's this whole shift. She notes that she does all these interviews, and she notes that some of her respondents use corporal punishment in the home. Oh, all of a sudden, these women we're supposed to feel bad for become the villains. Don't they know they're damaging their children? And she brings up ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, which if you're lucky enough to have avoided this, is basically this, it tallies up so-called adverse experiences in childhood to produce a score said to be predictive of future outcomes. And it's been criticized for things like playing down the role of poverty and conflating childhood sex abuse with things like not feeling anyone thought you were special. So even this astute analysis, pouring with empathy for the plight of women, turns on mothers as soon as, according to her chosen experts, they're doing it all wrong. So tally up the mistakes mothers make and you get all the causes of society's problems. So when we have these extremely deterministic ideas about childhood and motherhood, you could never support women well enough. Because what happens is we have all these problems in society, and people say, parents really should step up. Parents really should do this, this, and this. And then you push and you nudge and you surveil and you cajole. And, we still have these problems. But no one says, maybe we've misunderstood the problem. They think, women, worse than we thought. You're really terrible at this. And honestly, I think this is part of the reason why in my research I noticed in a lot of policy the word mothers is disappearing. And we can, there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think it's because increasingly, as you've said, women are seen as ideally working, and parenthood is this thing that drags them away from where they really should be. And so you don't even actually hear this language of parents. In the EU, they talk about formal caregivers and informal caregivers. Right? Like the informal market, like what's mom dealing? It could be goldfish crackers or it could be drugs. How do we know? So we can draw up lists of what women need, but none of it will matter until we address the core issue that when women become mothers, they're the last acceptable scapegoat when things go wrong. And your only option then is to burn out or opt out.
Thank you.